One of the keys to landing that thing nice and soft in the middle of a crosswind is understanding what the winds are doing versus the runway that you're landing on. Let's talk about that thing. Let go! Boom! One of the keys to landing safely in a strong, gusting crosswind is understanding the crosswind component chart in its relation to your aircraft, the limitations on your aircraft, in addition to your own personal minimums. At a student pilot level, you will have your instructor who will instill these personal minimums and not allow yourself to get into any sticky situations when it relates to crosswind. Kind of putting those personal minimums on your flights and making sure you're always flying safely. However, when you get your license, it's going to be your responsibility as pilot in command to make sure you always adhere to your own personal minimums, not the personal minimums of your friends, not the personal minimums of others, but your own personal minimums that will allow you to not only grow as a pilot and get better, but also stay safe, because that's what this game is all about, baby. Hey, boom! When you're landing an aircraft, very rarely do you have a 100% headwind coming right at you. Whatever runway that you're landing on, that wind at that time, in that particular time that you were getting ready to land, is 100% a direct headwind coming right towards you. More than likely, it's going to be some portion of a headwind as well as some degree of a crosswind, whether it's 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, some form of crosswind is going to be involved just based on what direction the winds are blowing at the time that you're getting ready to land. And that is where, of course, the crosswind component chart comes into play, and being able to quickly put in some inputs and determine exactly how much crosswind you're dealing with versus how much headwind, so you can land safely. Let go! Hey, we back off in that thing with our crosswind component chart. You may see something that looks like this, of course, on your E6B. You may have a copy of it in your documents on ForeFlight. You also may have it, of course, just on your knee board. Anywhere in the aircraft, you definitely want to make sure you have this device handy and somewhere around this chart so you can easily put in some inputs to it and kind of get back the information that you need ever so quickly. Hey, so this little squiggly line thing, let's run that thing. Go. Boom! The two key components that you're going to need to fill in this chart really quickly and eyeball it and give you the information that you need. You're going to have to know exactly what the winds are doing, which direction they're coming from, and of course, how strong are they. And then you're also going to have to know which runway do you plan to land on. That's all you need. Simple as that. Let's run one. Let's just say, of course, we were going to land at the airport on runway 07. So we were going to land on 07 runway, and the winds at that time were doing, of course, 360 at 20 knots. Woo! Fun times, baby. Hey, one time. So based on that, we're landing at runway 7, and of course the winds are coming from the north, 360 at 20 knots. How would we feel that information in this chart? The first thing we would do, we want to understand what is the difference between where the direction that the wind is blowing and the runway that we're landing on. So if this is just straight north, 360, but we're landing on 07, of course, how many degree difference is that from 360? About 70 degrees, correct? So all we would do was look at our crosswind component chart, go all the way until we get to 70 degrees exactly. And then as soon as we get to 70 degrees, perfect. Now we'll just follow the lines on the chart, come all the way down. And what we're looking for is, of course, the knot of how strong those winds are. And we see that those winds are as strong as 20 knots. So we got our 70 degrees. We'll come all the way in here. And now we're looking for that crosswind, that section there where it says 20, where it says, of course, 20 knots. We put a little dot there. And once we figure that out, we can kind of like look down. That'll give our crosswind ledger. That's about maybe a 18, 19 knot crosswind. And then, of course, we can go all the way across, and that'll give us our headwind, looking at about an 8 to 9 degree headwind. So as we very well know, rarely is wind just blowing directly down the runway at a headwind. It's usually always a nice mix of head and cross based on how the winds are going. So now we've determined that we got about an 8 to 9 wind headwind on this chart and about an 18 knot crosswind. Nice and strong to run that thing. So now we can make our adjustments based on that understanding, of course, what direction those winds are coming from. They're coming from the north. How strong are they going to be? And then how much crosswind that we're going to have to do, so we know we have to be on those ailerons, be on that rudder. And if you're looking for a review of how to land in a strong, gusty crosswind, there's a video on this channel, a link at the end of this video to review that, the technique that you're going to be using to land in that wind. But calculating that is as simple as that, and following the information on this chart. Let go! Boom! Now here's a couple little secrets that you definitely want to be aware of when using this crosswind component chart. Let's just say you were given the winds, right? It's still 360 at 20, but then maybe they tell you, of course, there's a wind gust of 2.4. You want to make sure when you do these calculations that you're calculating off that 2.4, not just the 2.0. The reason being, the wind can gust at any time. What if you did your calculations off of 2.0, but then the wind actually started to gust really hard when you were right on final, right getting ready to touch down, and how that wind gust came in and can really throw you off your game. But if you calculate for that, you will already be predetermined and aware of that. So always base everything off that gust if it's mentioned in the report that it is a wind gust. So it says wind gust 2.4 in that thing. Then what you will be doing, of course, that same runway, all those same things apply. You know, of course, between that 360, if we landed on runway 07, then we're going to automatically know that, of course, that's 70 degrees. So we're going to come down to our 70 degrees again. But now, instead of going to 20, we're going to go and we're going to stop at 24. And then we're going to go down and calculate. And we see that crosswind is a lot stronger now. Now we're looking at about maybe a 22 knot crosswind, and then still using, of course, that headwind there being 8 to 9 knot. So that's how you can simply use that chart, but make sure you're always calculating off the maximum of what it can be if they're mentioning gust in the report versus just off of what is blowing at a nice steady pace. Hey, boom! Now for the most important secret. Let's understand how the crosswind and headwind can change even if the winds didn't change. The only thing that changed was the runway that you decided to land on changed. And when you change that, you completely change the dynamic. Let's talk about this right now. Let's focus in on the exact same example of the wind. You did your wind check. The winds are exactly the same. 360 at 20 knots. But you decided we're not going to land on runway 7. We're going to land on runway 33. So let's follow the same calculation. What's the difference between 330 and 360? Only about 30 degrees, right? So let's look at our chart here. If we go to 30-degree moment, we're right there at 30 degrees. And then let's just say we go down on our chart to find, of course, 20. And when we get to 20, boom, we're right there. We got it penciled up, and then we start to look down at that crosswind to figure out what it is. We only have a 10 knot crosswind if we land on runway 33, instead of that 18 to 20 knot crosswind that it was when we were landing on runway 7. And we still, of course, got more like a 15, 17 knot headwind. So you see how now, just because we changed runways, we changed the way the direction is flowing on the plane, getting a little bit more headwind, which is going to help us slow down, and a lot less crosswind. This is important to know, particularly if you're ever in a situation where you have maybe multiple runway choices, and say it's a untowered or uncontrolled airport where you're making the selection. To make sure you make the selection that's going to benefit you and help you, this is how you can utilize this information to do so. There's a crosswind coming. You know, if you select the land on runway 33, this is what's going to happen. If you're given the option by tower to either land on runway 7 and runway 33, you've already did your calculations prior coming in. You already know that landing on runway 33 is going to benefit you even more. This is how you valuably use this information to your advantage as a pilot. Nice, quick calculations can go a long way to keeping you safe and landing that thing nice and soft. Hey, don't forget to like this video, comment on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel. I am Donovan Batiste, and this is Leadership Mindset, a place where you can come for free and fun videos about everything that you need to know for you to become a pilot. Because I want you to feel what pilots all over the world feel when we swinging and banging that thing. Let go! Love you one time.